The chill that seeped into my bones at the altar was not from the grand hall's marble, but from a cold, piercing realization, the metallic tang of a wound reopening. My vision blurred, not from tears, but from the shimmering distortion of a cool déjà vu. The murmurs from the assembled guests, a symphony of hushed horror, were a familiar chorus. "Look, it's Lady Seraphina again! How could Lord Cedric do this, on their wedding day?" Their whispers were daggers, each one twisting in a wound that had never truly healed. Cedric, my fiancé, stood not before me, but with his back to me, his hand clasped in hers, his eyes, once filled with fleeting promises to me, now alight with an adoration that had always belonged solely to her. Seraphina, his ex-fiancée, smiled triumphantly, her golden hair a halo, her expensive gown a stark contrast to my simple, elegant white. This scene, this precise moment of public humiliation, was etched into my very soul, a recurring nightmare made flesh. In my previous life, I had stood here too, heartbroken but ultimately forgiving. I had believed his tearful apologies, his pleas of confusion, his fervent promises that it would never happen again. What a fool I had been! But this time something was profoundly different. This time, as the high priest cleared his throat, an awkward cough piercing the suffocating silence, a profound shift occurred within me. In me. It wasn't just humiliation, it was a furious, incandescent rage, burning away the last vestiges of my previous naivete. The fragile thread of my sanity, stretched taut by years of emotional manipulation, finally snapped. A searing pain shot through my head, a kaleidoscope of fragmented memories flashing before my eyes, a life lived once before, a life of endless forgiveness and perpetual heartbreak, culminating in an early, quiet death. Heartbroken and forgotten. And then, a chance at a do-over. "This is it," a voice echoed in the depths of my being, a voice that was undeniably mine, yet imbued with the chilling wisdom of a future that had not yet come to pass. The moment of rebirth. Choose differently this time, Alina. My trembling hand, adorned with the engagement ring that now felt like a shackle, clenched into a fist. My mind raced, reviewing the countless indignities of my past existence. The way I had endlessly chased Cedric's affection, pouring my family's wealth into his failing ventures, propping up his grand illusions, all while he secretly pined for Seraphina. My father, dear Papa, had died tragically, his business, the once flourishing Greaves Mercantile, teetering on the brink of collapse, a shadow of its former glory. I had tried to save it, to honor his legacy, but my focus had always been divided, always pulled back to Cedric, to his empty promises and his insatiable needs. In that first life, I had lost everything, my dignity, my father's legacy, and ultimately, my life, all for a man unworthy of a single tear. Not anymore. Not this time. A cold, resolute calm settled over me, chilling in its intensity. The public humiliation, once a crushing weight, now felt like a liberating flame, burning away the chains of my past self. I raised my head, my eyes, once clouded with despair, now sharp and clear, reflecting the ornate ceiling of the cathedral. My voice, when it came, was steady, surprisingly devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the raw agony I had felt moments before. "Lord Cedric," I began, my words cutting through the shocked silence like shards of ice. Every head in the cathedral swiveled towards me, the focus shifting from the scandalous couple to the scorned bride. Cedric finally turned, his eyes wide with a fleeting surprise, a flicker of annoyance, perhaps, at my unexpected interjection. Seraphina's triumphant smirk faltered, her perfectly sculpted brows furrowing with a hint of irritation. "I believe," I continued, my gaze fixed on Cedric's handsome, yet utterly spineless face, There has been a misunderstanding. This wedding, it seems, is not meant to be. Not today, not ever." I extended my left hand, the engagement ring glittering under the cathedral's light, a symbol of a broken promise. "Lord Cedric, your ring." My voice was unwavering, my hand steady as I slipped the magnificent sapphire from my finger, the cold metal a welcome sensation against my skin. "And with it, my deepest wish that you and Lady Seraphina find the happiness you so clearly desire, away from me." I placed the ring carefully on the velvet cushion held by the wide-eyed ring-bearer, its weight no longer a burden, but a testament to my freedom. The gasps this time were louder, more incredulous. No one, absolutely no one, had expected this from the perpetually mild-mannered, forgiving Alina Greaves. Cedric's face went through a bewildering array of emotions: shock, indignation, then a flash of what looked like genuine hurt, quickly replaced by a pathetic attempt at indignation. Seraphina, recovering her composure, shot me a venomous look, a silent warning to stay in my place. "Alina, what is the meaning of this?" Cedric stammered, his voice laced with a performative indignation. "Are you truly making a scene on our wedding day?" I allowed myself a small, fleeting, almost imperceptible smile. "Our wedding day, Lord Cedric? I believe the eminence clearly suggests otherwise." My gaze swept over the stunned faces of the guests, then returned to the man who had twice humiliated me. "I wish you both a long and prosperous life, without me in it." With that, I turned, my silken train rustling softly behind me, a whisper of defiance. My movements were fluid, my steps purposeful, as I walked away from the altar, from the shocked assembly, from the life I had almost foolishly repeated. The path felt clearer now, the air lighter, unburdened by the crushing weight of a love that was never truly reciprocated. My past self, the one who had suffered in silence, was shedding her skin, and I, reborn, was stepping into the light of a new, fiercely independent future. The cathedral doors loomed ahead, a gateway not to a married life, but to a life reclaimed. I would not look back. Not this time. The whispers and scandals following my dramatic exit from the cathedral reached me even within the supposedly secluded walls of the Greaves family estate. The servants, their faces a mixture of shock and admiration, moved around me with a newfound reverence, as if I had shed my skin and become a different person entirely. And I had. The old Alina, the one who had pined and pleaded, had died at that altar. The Alina who emerged was forged in the fire of rebirth, armed with foresight and an unwavering resolve. My immediate priority was the family business, Greaves Mercantile. In my past life, I had watched it crumble, a casualty of my father's untimely death and my own distracted heartache. This time, it would not only survive, it would thrive. My father, dear Papa, a man of quiet brilliance and boundless ingenuity, had been unfairly dismissed by the capital's conservative elite. He was a visionary whose true potential was never fully realized due to a sudden illness that claimed him far too soon. He had left behind a trove of detailed journals and intricate blueprints for his ambitious projects, concepts so revolutionary they bordered on the fantastical to the narrow-minded aristocrats who favored tradition over progress. In my previous life, these had remained largely unread, gathering dust in his sprawling study, a monument to unfulfilled dreams. Now, they were my treasure map, my sacred inheritance, a blueprint for an entirely new world. I spent the first few weeks holed up in Papa's study, the scent of aged paper and dried ink a comforting embrace. I pored over his intricate designs for steam-powered looms that promised unprecedented textile production, revolutionary agricultural machinery that could transform barren lands into fertile fields, and even early, audacious concepts for airships, fantastical flying contraptions that the capital, steeped in its praff. Traditional, almost stagnant industries had dismissed as the ramblings of a madman. His notes were meticulous, filled with groundbreaking ideas that were not just decades, but possibly centuries, ahead of their time. His genius, tragically cut short, would now be my legacy, a beacon of innovation under my unwavering guidance. The very first step, a non-negotiable prerequisite, was to sever all ties, absolutely and irrevocably, with Cedric and his family, the Ashworths. Their influence, though often subtle and insidious, had always been a parasitic drain on Greaves Mercantile, a slow bleed of our resources. They had subtly pressured my father into ill-fated ventures, diverting valuable funds, and subtly undermining our reputation with their whispered criticisms and archaic viewpoints. I remembered how they had always scoffed at Papa's inventions, deeming them undignified or unnecessary for proper noble pursuits. I dispatched a formal letter, impeccably courteous but unequivocally firm, breaking the engagement irrevocably and demanding the immediate return of any assets, properties, or financial interests the Ashworth family had acquired through our previous agreements, no matter how convoluted or obscured by their legal maneuvering. I knew from my past life that their estate, the once grand Ashworth Manor, was secretly burdened by crippling mounting debts, its facade of ancient nobility slowly crumbling under the weight of Cedric's extravagant lifestyle and Seraphina's equally costly demands for endless luxury. Their family fortune, built on centuries of inherited privilege, was in truth built on a foundation of shifting sand, supported only by the fading prestige of their ancient name and their tenuous connections to older, equally indebted families. The response from Lady Ashworth, Cedric's mother, was a furious blizzard of indignant letters, filled with thinly veiled threats of social ruin, accusations of my ban, unladylike behavior, and unjustifiable breach of contract, each word dripping with venom and aristocratic outrage. I simply ignored them. My legal team, led by the sharpest mind in the capital, Lady Eleanor Thorne, a woman whose reputation for ruthless efficiency and uncompromising integrity was legendary, handled all further correspondence. Eleanor, with her steel-gray eyes, razor-sharp intellect, and an almost predatory understanding of the law, quickly recognized my seriousness, my absolute resolve. She handled the Ashworths with a cold, professional disdain that was a masterclass in legal maneuvering, ensuring every legal loop was closed, every penny accounted for, every obscure clause in old agreements brought to light. I learned quickly under her exacting tutelage, absorbing every detail of contract law, financial management, and strategic negotiation. My mind, once consumed by romantic woes and societal expectations, now found a thrilling, invigorating purpose in the intricate dance of commerce, law, and power. It was exhilarating, a profound awakening of my intellect. My first major project, chosen for its immediate impact and my father's most refined designs, was the steam-powered loom. Papa's blueprints detailed a mechanism that could produce textiles at an unprecedented rate, with a superior quality that would outshine anything currently on the market. I invested heavily, pulling funds from every available source, and even discreetly selling some of my inherited jewelry, dismissing the horrified gasps of my old-fashioned housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, who believed such practicalities were beneath a noble lady. My focus was absolute, my determination unyielding. I personally hired the most skilled engineers, the most innovative artisans, and the most meticulous craftsmen, paying them top wages, ensuring they were not only well compensated, but also treated with the respect their talents deserved. This fostered an environment of true innovation and collaborative problem-solving that was unheard of in the secretive, tradition-bound guilds of the capital. I personally oversaw every single step of the manufacturing process, my hands often stained with grease and oil, my mind alight with the sheer exhilaration of creation, of watching Papa's abstract concepts take tangible, functional form. The initial launch of the Greaves automated loom was met with widespread skepticism bordering on outright ridicule from the established textile merchants and the entrenched noble families who controlled the industry. They scoffed at its unconventional design, its roaring steam engines, and its seemingly fantastical claims of efficiency. They called it Alina's folly, dismissing me as a misguided young woman playing at business, destined to squander my inheritance on impractical whims. But when the first bolts of fabric rolled off the assembly line, flawlessly woven, stronger, more uniform, and more vibrant in color than anything produced by manual labor, their skepticism turned to stunned shock, and then to desperate, envious scramble. The quality was undeniable, the speed unprecedented. Orders poured in, overwhelming our initial capacity, demanding expansion. The demand was insatiable. Greaves Mercantile was reborn, not as a fading relic of a bygone era, but as a groundbreaking titan, leading the charge into a new, exciting industrial age. With the resounding, undeniable success of the loom, I rapidly diversified, following Papa's extensive notes. I revisited his ingenious agricultural designs, revolutionizing farming practices across vast swaths of the kingdom and dramatically increasing crop yields, bringing prosperity to countless struggling canine farmers. I invested heavily in shipping, commissioning a fleet of faster, more efficient steam-powered cargo vessels, drastically cutting down travel times and fostering unprecedented trade. I bought up failing, unproductive mines, implementing Papa's innovative extraction techniques that dramatically increased mineral output and ensured safer working conditions for the miners, a rarity in those brutalized coal industries. My business empire expanded with breathtaking speed, touching every aspect of the capital's economy, every new venture generating even more wealth, more influence, and more opportunities for the common folk. My name, Alina Greaves, once whispered in pity or polite dismissal, was now spoken with awe, with grudging respect, and for some, with a palpable hint of fear. I was the Iron Lady of the capital, a force to be reckoned with, an economic and social disruptor who commanded attention and respect through sheer competence and undeniable success. My social life, once a flurry of meticulously choreographed balls and frivolous tea parties designed solely to catch a suitable husband, became focused solely on strategic alliances and necessary political maneuvering. I entertained powerful ministers, influential foreign merchants, and even members of the royal court. My conversations now centered on complex trade agreements, groundbreaking technological advancements, and intricate economic policy. I learned to navigate the treacherous, often venomous currents of court politics with a chilling precision, my sharp mind and quiet determination earning me a formidable reputation as a shrewd negotiator and an unyielding adversary. I rarely attended frivolous social events, preferring the quiet, rhythmic hum of my factories, the satisfying click of my adding machine, or the intricate calculations of my ledgers to idle chatter and meaningless gossip. My days were long, often beginning before dawn and ending late into the night. My nights often spent poring over complex contracts or revising engineering schematics, but the profound satisfaction of building something tangible, something that honored my father's visionary spirit, was a reward beyond measure, a deeper contentment than I had ever known. Meanwhile, news of Cedric and Serafina occasionally trickled back to me through the omnipresent grapevine of the capital's gossip network. Their lavish wedding, hastily arranged after my dramatic departure, had been overshadowed and marred by the scandal of my public rejection, a festering wound on their carefully constructed aristocratic facade. Their finances, already precarious and built on the shifting sands of inherited wealth and irresponsible spending, were stretched even thinner by their insatiable desire for continued opulence. Serafina, utterly accustomed to a life of unbridled luxury and constant entertainment, quickly grew restless and resentful as Cedric's dwindling fortune failed to meet her exorbitant expectations. Rumors spoke of increasingly bitter arguments, of escalating debts, of a gilded cage slowly, inexorably losing its luster, its very gold flaking away. Their once grand manor, Ashworth Manor, a symbol of their ancient, though now empty, prestige, visibly fell into disrepair, a crumbling monument to their rapid financial ruin. Roof tiles went unfixed, windows remained broken and boarded up, and the once meticulously manicured gardens were now completely overgrown with tenacious weeds, a mournful testament to their utter neglect, desperate lack of funds. I heard tales of ruthless creditors hounding their doors relentlessly, of loyal servants fleeing due to unpaid wages, of a slow, agonizing descent into utter destitution, a spiral they seemed utterly powerless to stop. Castor. The profound irony was not lost on me. A chilling realization that settled deep in my core. While I, the discarded bride, rebuilt an empire from the ashes of a broken heart and a betrayed trust, in their selfish pursuit of fleeting desires and superficial grandeur, were slowly but surely destroying themselves, peeling away layer by layer of their self-important existence. And the thought, once agonizing in my previous life, now brought a chilling, undeniable satisfaction. My rebirth had not just saved me from a life of quiet misery, it had inverted our fates entirely, placing me firmly at the apex while they plunged into the abyss. The wheel of fortune, so cruel to me in my first life, was now turning with a precise, unyielding force in my favor, and I was ready to watch it spin, to witness the final, inevitable revolution. The true game had just begun, and I held all the winning cards. The capital buzzed with an unprecedented energy, a constant hum of industry and progress that filled the air. The rhythmic clang of steam hammers and the steady whir of gears from Greaves's mercantile factories echoed through the streets, a testament to the new era I had personally ushered in. My innovations, meticulously planned and ruthlessly executed, had not merely transformed the city, they had revolutionized it. They created countless jobs, fueled an explosive prosperity, and even altered the very physical landscape of the urban environment. Gas lamps, produced by my burgeoning enterprise, now illuminated the grand avenues with a soft, golden glow, banishing the shadows where only danger and uncertainty had once resided. The cobbled streets, once muddy and uneven, prone to disease and impediment, were now paved with resilient, heat-treated stone, another ingenious Greaves product, facilitating smoother trade and safer passage. The world, or at least my influential corner of it, was moving forward, propelled by my father's quiet genius and my own unyielding will. I was no longer just the Iron Lady of the capital, a formidable figure confined to the realm of commerce. I was, to many, the architect of progress, the lioness of industry, a visionary whose reach extended far beyond balance sheets. My reputation preceded me wherever I went, a double-edged sword of intense admiration from those who benefited from my enterprises, and a palpable apprehension from those who felt their traditional power threatened. Whoa. Respect was not given freely in this rigid society. It was earned, often through relentless struggle, but so too was envy, a bitter, corrosive emotion that simmered beneath the polite facades of the old elite. The old noble families, who had once dismissed me as a mere noblewoman to be married off, a pawn in their social games, now either desperately sought my favor, their faces etched with forced smiles, or eyed me with a simmering resentment, utterly unable to compete with the sheer scale, efficiency, and relentless innovation of my enterprises. They were dinosaurs, clinging to an antiquated past, while I soared towards a vibrant future. My life was a carefully orchestrated symphony of high-stakes meetings, intricate negotiations, and strategic expansions. My days were long, often beginning before dawn and ending late into the night, surrounded by towering stacks of ledgers and unfurled blueprints that stretched across my massive mahogany desk. Yet, amidst the relentless pressure, I thrived. The intellectual challenge, the profound satisfaction of seeing my father's complex visions take tangible, impactful form, filled a void that superficial romantic pursuits had never been able to touch. I had found my true calling, a purpose far grander, far more profound than any societal expectation of marriage or domesticity. News of Cedric and Seraphina's increasingly dire circumstances reached me with alarming regularity. almost as if the universe itself was determined to provide a running commentary on their slow, agonizing downfall. Their once grand estate, Ashworth Manor, a symbol of their fading legacy, had become a dilapidated shell, a public eyesore. Roof tiles were missing, exposing the interior to the elements. Windows were permanently boarded up with rough planks, and the once meticulously manicured gardens, a hallmark of noble upkeep, were now completely overgrown with tenacious weeds, a mournful testament to their complete financial ruin. The ancestral portraits, priceless heirlooms that had graced their grand halls for generations, had been quietly, shamefully, sold off, one by one, to service mounting debts and stave off immediate starvation. Their servants, once a small army of loyal retainers, had long since abandoned them, fleeing due to months of unpaid wages, leaving the Ashworths to fend for themselves in a house too large, too neglected, and too burdened by its own history for them to manage. The rumors that circulated whispered a picture of utter desolation. Lady Ashworth, Cedric's once imperious mother, was said to be perpetually ill, confined to her room, her spirit consumed by despair and chronic ailments brought on by malnutrition and profound stress. Cedric, once a charming social butterfly, now rarely left the crumbling manor, his face gaunt, his once impeccably tailored clothes now frayed, patched, and ill-fitting, clinging to his skeletal frame. Seraphina, who had reveled in unbridled luxury and constant unaeration, found herself utterly unprepared for a life of hardship. Her famed beauty, once her most potent weapon and her source of endless privilege, began to visibly fade under the relentless stress, constant hunger, and complete lack of proper care. She spent her days, I heard from reliable sources, alternately weeping hysterically and reeling at Cedric, blaming him for their misfortunes, for her lost status, for her vanished dreams of perpetual opulence. Their fervent, passionate love, once seemingly so intense and all-consuming, had curdled into a bitter, corrosive, mutual resentment, their days filled with constant accusations, cutting recriminations, and their desperate, futile search for blame. They were trapped in a self-made prison of their own disastrous choices, slowly suffocating in its confines. One crisp autumn morning, a sudden, unexpected flurry of activity erupted at the grand, wrought-iron gates of Greaves Manor. My head butler, a stern but exceptionally loyal man named Mr. Finch, approached me in my study, his usually stoic face etched with a rare, almost imperceptible hint of discomfort and a touch of something that looked suspiciously like amusement. "My lady," he began, his voice lowered to a discreet murmur, "a predicament has arrived, at the gate, of a rather persistent nature." I raised a single, perfectly arched brow, my pen still poised elegantly over a complex financial report outlining my expansion into international shipping lanes. "A predicament, Finch? Do elaborate. My time is rather precious." He cleared his throat, adjusting the cuffs of his immaculate uniform. "It is Lord Cedric and Lady Seraphina, my lady. They appear to be in quite a distressed state. They are requesting an audience, begging for shelter, it would seem, with considerable urgency." A cold, exhilarating shiver, like frost spreading across a window pane, ran down my spine. The moment I had subconsciously anticipated, the grand, almost theatrical culmination of their arrogance and my foresight had finally arrived. I felt no surge of childish triumph, no burst of unbridled glee, only a profound, almost chilling sense of poetic justice, a meticulous, unyielding satisfaction at the slow, inevitable unfolding of fate. My blood ran cold, yet my mind was alight with a strange, quiet thrill. "Indeed," I said, my voice utterly devoid of any detectable emotion, my gaze fixed on the meticulous columns of figures before me, as if their plight was of no more consequence than a minor accounting error in a ballet. "Quarterly report. And what, pray tell, is the specific reason for this sudden, urgent need for shelter?" Finch hesitated again, clearly uncomfortable with relaying their ignominious tale, yet compelled by his duty. "Ashworth Manor, my lady," he explained, his voice softening slightly. "It appears to have been officially foreclosed upon. The bank seized all their remaining assets this very morning. They have nowhere left to go. They claim they recall your former kindness, your boundless compassion, and hope you might extend a temporary refuge." End quote. His tone implied a subtle eye roll that only I would detect. A low, humorless chuckle, a sound like dry leaves rustling in a winter wind, escaped my lips. "My former kindness, Finch?" I repeated, the words laced with a subtle, yet potent, irony. How quaint! It seems their memories, much like their finances, are rather selective and severely lacking. I closed the heavy ledger with a soft, decisive thud, finally looking up, my eyes meeting his with an unblinking intensity. "And what, precisely, did you tell them?" "I informed them, my lady," Finch replied, his voice regaining its professional crispness, his posture straightening to its full, dignified height. "That Greaves Manor is under your direct and sole ownership, as is all property within a 10-mile radius of the capital's central market, and indeed, a significant portion of the city itself. I further advise them that you are the sole proprietor of Greaves Mercantile, which now holds the mortgage deeds to most of the smaller properties in the surrounding districts, and through various intricate subsidiaries and holding companies, the official title to all significant commercial and residential properties of note, including, I might add, the very land upon which Ashworth Manor formerly stood." He paused, a hint of deep, personal satisfaction, a triumph for long-suffering loyalty, gleaming in his usually unreadable eyes. "In essence, my lady, I informed them, quite politely, that they are knocking on your door, no matter which door in the capital they knock on. Every single one." A genuine smile, slow and deliberate, precise and perfectly chilling, spread across my face. This was it. The absolute, undeniable, irrefutable truth of their folly, their arrogance, their utter lack of foresight. They had gambled on my perceived weakness, on my forgiving nature, on my predictable kindness, and they had lost everything, spectacularly and irrevocably. And the irony, the sheer, exquisite, poetic justice of it all, was that they were now standing, utterly destitute, at the mercy of the very woman they had so publicly, so gleefully discarded, the very woman they had believed insignificant, easily forgotten. "Excellent, Finch," I said, my voice calm, but with an underlying steel that brooked no argument, a finality that resonated through the room. "Show them in. Not to the main parlor, mind you, nor the smaller drawing rooms. The receiving room by the servants' entrance will suffice. It is fitting for their current status, I believe." My gaze sharpened. "And ensure they understand they are requesting an audience, not demanding one. They are here on my terms, and mine alone. Impress upon them the gravity of their position." Finch bowed deeply, his expression perfectly neutral, betraying no hint of his own profound satisfaction. "Understood, my lady, immediately." As he left, his footsteps soft and purposeful, I rose from my desk, walked to the large bay window, and gazed out at the sprawling capital. The gas lamps I produced flickered to life, painting the city in a soft golden glow, a beacon of progress. The factories, vast and efficient, hummed with a comforting, powerful symphony of industry and tireless production. This was my empire, built brick by painstaking brick, innovation by relentless innovation, fueled by the cold ashes of my past self and the unwavering vision of my brilliant father. And now, the very individuals who had tried to extinguish my light, who had mocked my father's dreams, were standing at my gate, begging for a flicker of its warmth, begging for a fragment of the prosperity they had so arrogantly scoffed at. The world had truly turned, completely and irrevocably. And this time, I was holding all the reins, directing its course with a steady, unyielding hand. The air in the modest receiving room was heavy with the palpable tension of their desperate anticipation. I remained by the window, my back still to the door, allowing the silence to stretch, amplifying their discomfort. The rhythmic clanking of a nearby steam-powered laundry system, a constant reminder of my thriving enterprises, seemed to mock their pathetic plight. I heard their hesitant footsteps, the rustle of worn, cheap fabric, the subtle shifting of bodies unaccustomed to such humble surroundings. This was no grand entrance for a noble family, but a meek supplication, a desperate plea for a kindness they had never shown. Finally, a choked sob, unmistakably Seraphina's, pierced the suffocating silence. "Alina, is that truly you?" Her voice, once melodious and haughty, was now thin, reedy, laced with a pathetic disbelief and a desperate, almost begging tone. I turned slowly, deliberately, my gaze sweeping over them, taking in every painful detail with a detached, almost scientific curiosity, as if observing specimens under a microscope. Cedric and Seraphina, once the epitome of aristocratic elegance and effortless charm, were now pathetic shadows of their former selves. Cedric's once immaculate suits were rumpled, stained, and threadbare, clinging loosely to his now gaunt frame. His once dark, meticulously styled hair was disheveled, streaked with premature gray, and his eyes, once so full of a shallow, self-serving charm, were now sunken, haunted by a profound, desperate weariness. He looked like a man who hadn't known a peaceful night's sleep in weeks. His proud shoulders slumped under an invisible burden of crushing debt and crushing regret. Seraphina was even more startling in her decline. Her golden hair, once shimmering with expensive treatments and styled with meticulous care, was now dull, lank, and unkempt, lacking the luster of wealth. Her silk gown, though still of fine material, was stained and wrinkled, its once vibrant color faded to a dull mockery of its former glory, its luxurious folds now hanging limply, almost mournfully. Her face, once porcelain smooth and exquisitely made up, was pale and gaunt, her delicate features etched with harsh worry lines, particularly around her mouth, which seemed perpetually downturned. Her once bright, cunning eyes were clouded with despair and a simmering resentment that was still, inexplicably, directed at me, as if I were the author of their misfortunes. The carefully constructed facade of aristocratic grace, the veneer of effortless superiority, had completely crumbled, revealing the raw, unvarnished fear and desperation beneath. "Lord Cedric, Lady Seraphina," I said, my voice calm, utterly devoid of any warmth, any pity, a stark contrast to the overwhelming, often self-sacrificing emotion that had once defined my interactions with them. "To what do I owe this unexpected, yet entirely predictable visit?" Cedric flinched, visibly recoiling as if struck. His eyes darted nervously around the modest room, clearly uncomfortable with its utilitarian simplicity, with the unspoken reminder of his own dramatically fallen status. He longed for the opulent comfort he no longer possessed. "Alina," he stammered, his voice hoarse, attempting to inject a semblance of their old familiarity, a desperate plea for recognition, a desperate attempt to bridge the chasm that now separated us. "Please, don't play games. You know why we are here. Ashworth Manor. It's gone. Utterly gone. We have nowhere left to go, not a single roof over our heads. We are truly, truly destitute." Seraphina, momentarily regaining a sliver of her former imperiousness, though her voice still trembled with barely suppressed fear, stepped forward, her hands clasped tightly before her. "We heard you've done remarkably well for yourself, Alina," she began, her tone a pathetic attempt at casual conversation, a desperate attempt to flatter. "A veritable industrialist, they say. The talk of the capital, indeed. We merely thought, given our past, our history, our family's long-standing connection, you might extend a gesture of kindness, a temporary lodging, perhaps? Just until we recover our bearings, just until Cedric can find his feet again. She managed a weak, almost desperate smile, a pitiful, pathetic echo of her old, captivating charm, a charm that no longer worked on me. I allowed a slow, knowing smile to spread across my face, a smile that held no mirth, no cruelty, only a chilling, profound understanding of their delusion. My father's long-standing connection with your family, Lady Seraphina? I countered, my voice laced with subtle, cutting irony. Indeed. A connection that, if memory serves, involved your family meticulously and relentlessly extracting significant resources from ours under the guise of mutual benefit. A connection that left my dear father's legacy teetering on the brink of absolute ruin, even as your own fortunes, fueled by our wealth, swelled to unsustainable levels. A connection that culminated in my public, utterly humiliating abandonment at the altar, not once, but twice. My gaze hardened, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous tone, each word a carefully placed stone in an impenetrable wall. Forgive me if I find your sudden appeal to past kindness rather disingenuous and entirely opportunistic. My kindness in the past was a weakness you ruthlessly exploited. Cedric visibly recoiled, his face paling further. A dawning comprehension of the bitter truth of my words washing over him. Seraphina's eyes flashed with a brief, impotent indignation, a desperate surge of her old pride, but the spark quickly died, replaced by a deeper, more chilling fear. Her facade had completely shattered. "Alina, please," Cedric pleaded, taking a pathetic step forward, his hands clasped together in a desperate gesture of supplication, his voice a hoarse whisper. "I know I wronged you. Terribly. My actions were unforgivable, truly. But we are desperate, Alina. We have absolutely nothing left. Not even a roof over our heads. We've knocked on every door in the capital, every estate we thought might offer sanctuary, every relative, every old acquaintance, but your name is on every deed, every lease, every business contract. It's as if you own the entire capital. Every single building, every single plot of land we inquire about, it always leads back to Greaves's mercantile, to you." His voice was filled with a bewildered awe, a dawning horror at the sheer scale of my empire, the inescapable, invisible net I had meticulously woven around their entire world. I crossed my arms over my chest, my posture unyielding, my stance a picture of impregnable resolve. I observed his pathetic, desperate display, with a cool, clinical detachment. "And so, you come to me, the woman you so publicly discarded, the woman whose family you helped to bleed dry, whose legacy you scorned. You truly believed, Lord Cedric, that after such a profound, soul-crushing betrayal, after years of disrespect and manipulation, I would simply open my doors, eager to extend forgiveness for your past transgressions? That I would somehow forget the anguish, the humiliation, the sheer, casual disrespect you so gleefully inflicted upon me for years?" My voice was calm, almost conversational, but each word was a carefully aimed arrow, sharp and precise, piercing their fragile, self-serving hopes. Seraphina's brittle composure finally shattered completely. "You're enjoying this, aren't you, Alina?" she shrieked, her voice cracking with raw, unbridled fury and profound, impotent frustration. Her eyes, filled with hatred, blazed with a desperate, trapped animal's rage. "You're reveling in our misery. This is your revenge. You, the meek little mouse, the plain little wallflower, have become a cold, calculating viper." My gaze, cold and steady, met hers, unwavering. "Revenge, Lady Seraphina?" I mused, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor of satisfaction, a validation of my long journey running through me. No. This is simply the inevitable, unyielding consequence of your choices. You chose superficial ambition over genuine loyalty. You chose immediate, fleeting gratification over long-term stability and integrity. You chose to disregard honor, compassion, and common decency, believing yourselves above such mundane virtues. And now, you face the harvest of those choices. I merely observe its bounty, Lady Seraphina, a silent witness to the seeds you yourselves have sown. I walk towards my desk, picking up a document, a newly acquired deed, crisp and formal. You speak of a roof over your heads. I continued, my voice calm, conversational almost, as I examined the document, as if their fate was simply another business transaction. It's true, I own a considerable portion of this city's properties, including, ironically, the very plot of land where Ashworth Manor once stood. It will soon be cleared for a new factory, a massive complex dedicated to aeronautic innovation, a testament to efficiency, progress, and a future you clearly failed to envision. The capital's future, rather than its stagnant aristocratic past, will define that space. I looked up, my eyes devoid of pity, reflecting only the cold, hard facts of their reality. There is no temporary lodging here for you, Lord Cedric, or for you, Lady Seraphina. Not within my walls, not on any of my properties. Not anywhere within my influence in this entire capital, or indeed, in any of the provinces where Greaves Mercantile holds sway. Cedric stumbled backward again, his face utterly ashen, the full, crushing weight of my words finally, irrevocably settling upon him. But, where will we go? He whispered, his voice a pathetic whimper, stripped bare of all his former arrogance, all his charm, all his self-importance. We have nothing. No one. We are utterly alone. That, I stated, my voice clear and unwavering, resounding with absolute finality, is a consequence of your actions, not mine. The world, Lord Cedric, does not owe you endless chances, particularly after you have so carelessly, so maliciously, squandered the ones you were so generously given. You chose your path, a path of deceit and self-indulgence. Now, walk it. Every painful step. I walked to the door and opened it, signaling to Finch, who stood silently, impeccably, outside. Finch, Lord Cedric and Lady Seraphina have concluded their visit. Please ensure they are immediately escorted from the premises. And do impress upon them, with utmost clarity, that any further attempts to gain access, any harassment, any plea, will be met with the full and uncompromising force of my legal counsel, and if necessary, the city guard. Finch bowed deeply, his expression perfectly neutral, betraying no hint of his own profound satisfaction at witnessing the downfall of those who had once mocked my family. Understood, my lady. It will be done. Cedric stared at me, a desperate, confused plea in his sunken eyes, a dawning horror at the absolute chilling finality of my words, the utter hopelessness of his situation. Seraphina stood rigid, her face a mask of furious, impotent rage, her dreams of regaining former glory, of any semblance of comfort, utterly shattered beyond repair. Their once resplendent aura of nobility, their carefully cultivated image of effortless superiority, had completely evaporated, leaving behind only the bitter scent of defeat, of despair, of an unavoidable, desolate future. Good day, Lord Cedric. Lady Seraphina, I said, my voice echoing with a chilling finality that left no room for appeal or negotiation. I offered them no gesture of farewell, no flicker of compassion, no hint of a second thought, only the cold, unyielding wall of my transformed, reborn self. As Finch gently but firmly guided their trembling bodies out of the room, out of my home, and out of my life, I turned back to my study, to the comforting hum of my thriving empire, to the intricate calculations of my next grand venture. The world outside, the world they were now forced to navigate without shelter, without influence, without hope, without dignity, was no longer my concern. My attention was fixed firmly on the future, on the intricate dance of progress, on the ever-expanding empire I had meticulously built from the ashes of my own pain, from the blueprint of my father's genius. The score had been settled, not with crude revenge, but with quiet, absolute, and unassailable victory. The saga of Cedric and Seraphina's fall, and my own ascension, became a powerful legend in the capital, recounted in hushed tones in noble parlors and with triumphant cheers in bustling taverns. It served as a stark reminder that the old order was truly crumbling, making way for a new meritocracy where influence was earned through ingenuity and industry, not merely inherited through bloodlines. My position, once challenged by aristocratic sneers, was now unassailable, cemented by undeniable success and a reputation for uncompromising fairness, tempered with an iron will. My ventures continued to redefine the technological landscape of the kingdom. The Greaves Aeronautics Division, once a secret project, officially launched its first commercial airship routes. The capital watched in awe as majestic dirigibles, gleaming with polished brass and durable lightweight alloys, soared gracefully overhead, connecting distant cities in hours where weeks had once been required. They carried not just valuable cargo, but also passengers, making travel faster, safer, and more accessible than ever before. This innovation truly transformed the kingdom's economy, fostering unprecedented trade and cultural exchange, ushering in an age of prosperity that was felt by every citizen. I often took personal flights, gazing down at the sprawling landscape, a sense of profound accomplishment settling deep within me. From this vantage point, the world seemed vast and full of boundless opportunities, a stark contrast to the stifling confines of my previous life. Beyond the grand achievements, my focus remained on systemic improvements. I launched the Greaves Philanthropic Foundation, diverting a significant portion of my wealth to building more schools, establishing libraries accessible to the public, and funding advanced medical research. I believed true power lay not just in accumulation, but in upliftment, in creating a society where everyone had the chance to thrive. My father's forgotten medical texts, discovered during my initial deep dives into his archives, proved invaluable. They contained unconventional, yet highly effective, remedies for common ailments and insights into public health that were centuries ahead of contemporary medical practices. I funded the establishment of public clinics, staffed by skilled, compassionate healers trained in these revolutionary methods, dramatically improving the health and well-being of the working class, who had often suffered in Reborn. Silence. My private life, however, remained guarded. I had built a formidable wall around my heart, not out of bitterness, but out of a profound understanding that true happiness came from within, from purpose and accomplishment, rather than from external validation or romantic entanglement. Suitors, of course, presented themselves regularly, drawn by my immense wealth, my undeniable influence, and the aura of mystique that surrounded me. They ranged from ambitious young lords to aging, powerful dukes. I entertained them politely but firmly, dismissing their advances with a courteous yet unyielding grace. My focus was elsewhere, on the boundless horizon of innovation and societal progress. The thought of entrusting my heart, my independence, or my empire to another seemed utterly unthinkable. I was complete. Years passed, marked by further milestones. The first Greaves-designed underground railway system, connecting the capital's districts with astonishing speed and efficiency. The development of self-regulating irrigation systems that turned arid lands into lush agricultural hubs. Even the initial blueprints for sophisticated communication devices that promised instantaneous long-distance communication. My father's genius, channeled through my unwavering will, truly transformed the kingdom. One winter afternoon, a particularly harsh blizzard swept through the capital, blanketing the city in a thick layer of snow and ice. My estate hummed with the warmth and efficiency of its steam heating systems, a cozy haven against the biting cold. I was in my study, reviewing plans for a new urban planning initiative, when Mr. Finch appeared, his face unusually grim, a subtle tremor in his impeccably gloved hands. "My lady," he said, his voice unusually strained. "A situation has arisen at the city's outer wall. The guards, unable to handle it themselves, have requested your intervention, or at least your counsel." I frowned, a rare flicker of concern crossing my features. My enterprises often provided aid in emergencies, but direct intervention from me was unusual. "What is it, Finch? A breach? A medical emergency beyond the scope of the public clinics?" He hesitated, then took a deep breath. "It is a group of unfortunates, my lady, caught in the blizzard. They attempted to enter the city but were too weak. They are near collapse, and among them are Lord Cedric and Lady Seraphina." A cold, familiar sensation washed over me, a chilling sense of inevitability. I had known, deep down, that our paths might cross again, but I had hoped it would be a fleeting, distant encounter. Now, here they were, reduced to their absolute lowest, begging not for shelter within my manor, but simply for the right to exist within the city I had rebuilt. "They are truly in such dire straits, then?" I asked, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Beyond dire, my lady," Finch confirmed, his usual stoicism giving way to a rare note of genuine pity. "They are barely clinging to life, malnourished, frostbitten. They have been living on the streets for months, my lady, after exhausting every last trace of their former connections. This blizzard, it seems, is the final blow." I closed my eyes for a moment, picturing them. Cedric, once so arrogant, now emaciated Seraphina, once so vain, now ravaged by cold and hunger. The vision brought no satisfaction, only a profound sense of the bitter trajectory of their choices. Their suffering was not my doing, but the natural consequence of their own disregard for others, their own selfish pursuits. "Very well, Finch," I said, opening my eyes, my decision made. It was not pity, but principle. My city, my responsibility. Dispatch a team from the Greaves Philanthropic Foundation. Ensure they are brought to the nearest public clinic. Provide them with medical attention, warm clothing, and nutritious food. Once they are stabilized, they will be given lodging at one of the newly established public shelters in the outer district. Not special treatment, no preferential consideration, simply what is due to any citizen in need. They will receive no more, and no less, than what is offered to any other unfortunate soul seeking refuge." End quote. Finch bowed, a hint of respect in his eyes that went beyond his usual professional deference. "As you command, my lady. It will be done with discretion." As he left, I walked to the window once more, looking out at the swirling snow. The city lights, my lights, shimmered through the blizzard, a beacon of warmth and civilization. I imagined Cedric and Seraphina, cold and broken, being guided through the harsh weather, towards a shelter that existed because of my father's legacy, because of my rebirth. They would receive care, they would survive, but they would do so as anonymous beneficiaries of the very system they had once scoffed at, a system built by the woman they had scorned. I felt no overwhelming triumph, no cathartic joy. Just a quiet, profound sense of completeness. My rebirth had not been about vengeance, but about healing. Healing my past, healing my family's name, and, in a way, healing the broken parts of the world around me. My life was no longer defined by a man who had replaced me, but by an empire built on the bedrock of innovation, compassion, and unwavering resolve. I was the architect of my own destiny, and the builder of a brighter future for all. My heart, once shattered, was now whole, filled not with the fleeting emotions of romantic love, but with the profound satisfaction of purpose, of creation, of a life truly lived. I had replaced the pain with prosperity, the humiliation with power, and the sorrow with an unshakable sense of self. I had built a shelter, not just for myself, but for countless others, and now, those who had denied me one inadvertently begged for a place within it. And I, Alina Greaves, watched their desperate plea, knowing that the greatest revenge was living a life so extraordinary they could only ever look up at it from the outside.